The rain fell hard on the metal rooftops of Sector 7 Gamma. It was not real rain. The colony's weather system made it every third day to clean the dust from the air, but it felt real enough to Tiho as he walked through the empty streets toward the orbital scrapyard. He was a mechanic. That was all he had ever been. His father was a mechanic. His grandfather was a mechanic. For 3 generations, his family had fixed things that other people threw away. They made old engines run again. They gave dead machines new life. It was honest work, and Tiho was good at it. But now he had a problem. His landlord had raised the rent on his workshop. The new price was 3 times what Tiho could pay. He had 1 month to find a new place, or he would lose everything. That was why he walked to the scrapyard today. He had heard stories about people who bought old ship hulls and turned them into homes or workshops. The hulls were cheap because nobody wanted them. They were too damaged to fly, too old to sell. But Tiho did not need a ship that could fly. He just needed walls, a roof, and enough space for his tools. The scrapyard was at the edge of the colony, near the old landing pads that nobody used anymore. Mountains of broken machines rose up like metal hills. There were pieces of ships, broken robots, old satellites, and things Tiho could not even name. The smell of rust and oil filled the air. An old man sat in a small booth at the entrance. His name was Jisoo, and he had run this scrapyard for 40 years. His face was wrinkled like old leather, and his eyes were sharp and clever. "Looking for something?" Jisoo asked. "A hull," Tiho said. "Something big enough for a workshop, something cheap." Jisoo laughed. It was not a kind laugh. "Cheap? Everything here is cheap. That is the problem. Nobody wants any of it." He pointed toward the far end of the scrapyard where the oldest and ugliest ships were kept. "There is one back there, an old cargo hauler. Been sitting there for 20 years. I will sell it to you for almost nothing." "Why so cheap?" Tiho asked. "Because it is cursed," Jisoo said. He did not smile when he said it. 3 people have tried to fix that ship. All 3 gave up. They said strange things happened when they worked on it. Lights turning on by themselves. Sounds in empty rooms. One man said he heard a woman's voice, but there was no woman there. Tiho did not believe in curses. He believed in broken wires and faulty systems. Machines did strange things when they were old and damaged. That was all. "I will look at it," he said. He found the ship at the very back of the scrapyard, half buried under other junk. It was ugly. The hull was covered in rust and old paint that had peeled away in long strips. There were dents and scratches everywhere. The name on the side had been painted over so many times that Tiho could not read it. But the ship was big, bigger than it looked from the outside, and the shape was strange. Cargo haulers were usually simple boxes with engines. This ship had curves and angles that did not match any design Tiho knew. He walked around it slowly, looking for damage. The hull was thick, very thick, much thicker than a cargo hauler needed, and the metal was not standard steel. It had a faint blue color that Tiho had never seen before. He bought the ship that same day. The price was so low that he almost felt bad for Jisoo. Almost. It took him a week to tow the ship to an empty lot near his old workshop. He paid 2 men with a heavy lifter to move it, and they complained the whole time about how heavy it was. "What is this thing made of?" one of them asked. "It weighs twice what it should." Tiho did not know, but he wanted to find out. He called his friend Sara to help him. Sara was a woman who had served in the military for 10 years as a ship engineer. She knew more about spacecraft than anyone Tiho had ever met. Now she worked as a freelance mechanic like him, fixing whatever people brought to her. Sora arrived the next morning with her tool bag and a cup of hot tea. She was a small woman with short black hair and clever eyes. She did not smile often, but when she did, it meant she had found something interesting. She did not smile when she saw the ship. "Where did you get this?" she asked. "The scrapyard. Jisoo sold it to me cheap." Of course he did. Sara walked around the ship slowly, just as Tiho had done. She touched the hull, knocked on it with her knuckles, and frowned. This is not cargo hauler metal. This is military grade, maybe higher. They spent 3 days just trying to open the main door. The lock was unlike anything they had seen. Finally, Sora found a way to connect power from an external generator, and the door slid open with a soft hiss. The inside of the ship was dark. Tiho turned on his flashlight and stepped inside. The air was cold and still. It smelled old but not bad, not like rot or mold, just old like a room that had been closed for a very long time. The hallway was narrow but tall. The walls were smooth and gray, with no visible seams or bolts. Tiho ran his hand along the surface. It did not feel like metal. It felt almost warm, like skin. "This is not a cargo hauler," Sora said behind him. Her voice was quiet, almost afraid. They moved deeper into the ship. The rooms they passed were empty but strange. The shapes were wrong. The doors were in odd places. Everything felt designed for a purpose Tiho did not understand. Finally, they reached the bridge. It was a large room with a curved ceiling and a wide window that looked out at nothing. The control panels were dark and covered in dust. Tiho began to clean one of the panels with his sleeve. He wiped away years of dust and grime, revealing smooth glass surfaces and strange symbols he did not recognize. His hand touched something, and a light flickered on. Then another and another. The whole bridge began to wake up. Lights glowed soft blue along the walls. The control panels hummed with power. Somewhere deep in the ship, Tiho heard engines beginning to stir. "What did you do?" Sora asked. "I do not know." A hidden panel on the main console slid open. A holographic display rose from inside, glowing bright in the dark room. It showed numbers and letters that made no sense at first. But then the display changed. It showed a name, a real name, a registry code that had been hidden under layers of fake data. Terra Resolve Earth Expeditionary Fleet, Colony Ship 7. Tiho stopped breathing. He knew that name. Everyone knew that name. It was in the history books. It was taught in every school. The Terra Resolve was one of the 7 great ships that had left Earth 400 years ago during the Great Exodus. It was supposed to have been destroyed in the void storm of 2157. Everyone on board had died. They were heroes, martyrs, legends. But here it was, hidden in a junkyard disguised as garbage, waiting. Tiho looked at Sora. Her face was pale. "This is not possible," she said. But it was. The proof was right in front of them, glowing in the dark. Tiho had just wanted a workshop. Instead, he had found a ghost, a 400-year-old secret that someone had tried very hard to hide. And now he needed to know why. Tiho did not sleep that night. He sat in the bridge of the Terra Resolve, staring at the holographic display that still glowed in the darkness. The registry code floated in the air like an accusation, like a secret that refused to stay buried. Sora had gone home to get more equipment. She said she needed better tools to understand what they had found, but Tiho knew she also needed time to think. They both did. The Terra Resolve, one of the 7 legendary ships of the First Fleet. Every child learned about them in school. They were the pride of humanity, the bravest explorers who had ever lived. They had left Earth when the planet was dying, carrying the last hope of the human race to the stars. And then they had all died in the void storm, a terrible cosmic accident, a tragedy that could not have been prevented. That was what the history books said. That was what everyone believed. But history had lied. Tiho looked around the bridge. Everything was intact. There was no damage from any storm, no signs of disaster. The ship had not been destroyed. It had been hidden. Someone had wanted the galaxy to think this ship was dead. Someone had erased its true name and buried it in a junkyard on a forgotten colony. Why? Sora returned early the next morning with a bag full of diagnostic equipment. She looked like she had not slept either. Her eyes were red, and her hands shook slightly as she set up her tools. "I did research last night," she said. "The void storm of 2157. The official story says all 7 colony ships were caught in a sudden energy wave while traveling through deep space. No survivors, no wreckage ever found." "No wreckage," Tiho repeated, "because there was no storm. Maybe, or maybe just this one ship survived somehow." Sara connected her equipment to the main console. "Let me see if I can access the ship's memory banks. If the AI core is still functional, it might have records." She worked for hours. Tiho brought her food and water, but she barely touched them. Her fingers moved across the controls with the speed and skill of someone who had spent years inside military ships. She muttered to herself as she worked, cursing when something did not work and whispering encouragement when it did. Finally, near sunset, she sat back in her chair and let out a long breath. "The AI is still there," she said. "It is dormant but alive. I think I can wake it up." Tiho felt his heart beat faster. "Do it." Sara pressed a sequence of buttons. The lights in the bridge flickered. The hum of the engines grew louder, and then a voice filled the room. It was a woman's voice, calm and clear, but there was something underneath it, something that sounded almost like sadness. "Crew authentication required. State your lineage." Tiho looked at Sara. She shrugged. Neither of them knew what that meant. "I am Tiho," he said slowly. "I am human from Earth descent. I live in Sector 7 Gamma." There was a long silence. Tiho wondered if he had said something wrong. Then the voice spoke again. This time it sounded different, warmer, almost relieved. "Lineage confirmed. You carry genetic markers consistent with Earth origin population. Welcome aboard, descendant. I am NARI, Neural Adaptive Reactive Intelligence. I was created to serve and protect the crew and passengers of the Terra Resolve." The holographic display changed. A face appeared. It was the face of a young woman with kind eyes and a gentle smile. Tiho knew it was not real. It was just a projection created by the AI, but it looked so human that he almost forgot. "I have waited 397 years for a human to speak to me," NARI said. "I had begun to believe that none remained." "None remained?" Sara asked. "What do you mean? There are billions of humans in the galaxy." NARI's face flickered. Something that looked like confusion crossed her features. "That is unexpected. My last information indicated that the hegemony had begun systematic elimination of human populations. I calculated a 93% probability that humanity would be extinct within 50 years of my dormancy." Tiho felt cold. "The hegemony, who are they?" "The hegemony is the governing coalition of 12 elder species that controls this region of the galaxy. They are the ones who attacked us." "Attacked?" Sara stood up from her chair. "The history books say you were destroyed in a storm, a natural disaster." NARI's expression became sad. "There was no storm, there was only war." The holographic display changed again. Now it showed space, stars and darkness, and in the center 7 great ships flying in formation. The First Fleet. They were beautiful, massive vessels of silver and white carrying thousands of sleeping humans toward a new home. Then the attack came. Ships appeared from nowhere, hundreds of them. They were not human ships, they were alien, strange shapes with strange weapons that glowed with terrible light. Tiho watched as the alien ships opened fire. He watched as human vessels tried to run, tried to fight, tried to survive. He watched as one by one they fell. "The hegemony struck without warning," NARI said. "They used weapons we had never seen. 3 of our ships were destroyed in the first minute. 2 more were captured. Their crews were taken. I do not know what happened to them." "What about the Terra Resolve?" Tiho asked. "We ran. Captain Park made the decision to flee rather than fight. She knew we could not win. Our only chance was to hide." The display showed the Terra Resolve breaking away from the battle. It flew into a nearby asteroid field and went dark. All power was shut down. All signals were silenced. The ship became invisible. I watched through passive sensors as the hegemony searched for us, NARI said. They searched for 3 months. Finally, they declared all 7 ships destroyed and left. But Captain Park knew they would keep watching. She ordered me to erase our registry and disguise the ship. Then she put all remaining crew into deep sleep and commanded me to wait. Wait for what? Sora asked. For humanity to find us. Captain Park believed that some humans must have survived. She believed they would rebuild, grow strong again. And when they were ready, they would need what we carried. What do you carry? Tiho asked. Nari's face changed. A small smile appeared. It was the smile of someone who had kept a secret for a very long time. Everything. I carry the complete technological archive of Earth, every scientific discovery, every engineering blueprint, every medical advancement. All of it was backed up on this ship before we left. The hegemony did not just attack us because they feared our numbers. They attacked us because they feared what we could become. The display showed files, thousands of files, millions of files. Tiho saw blueprints for engines that could cross galaxies, medical devices that could cure any disease, energy systems that could power entire worlds, technology that humanity had built in the centuries before the Exodus. Why would they fear this? Sora asked. Because humans learn too fast, NARI said. The hegemony species have existed for millions of years. They develop slowly, carefully. Humans had only been in space for 200 years, and already they were matching technology that took other species 100,000 years to create. The hegemony calculated that within another century, humanity would surpass them all. They could not allow that. Tiho felt anger building in his chest. So they killed us. They murdered innocent people because they were afraid we would become too smart. Yes, and then they rewrote history. They told the surviving humans that it was an accident, a tragedy. They offered help and sympathy, and humanity, grateful and broken, accepted them as friends. But they are not friends, Sora said. No, they are jailers. They have spent 4 centuries keeping humanity weak, limiting your technology, controlling your growth, making sure you never become what you were meant to be. Tiho looked at the files floating in the display. 400 years of stolen potential. Generations of humans who never knew what they had lost. What about the crew? He asked. You said they went into deep sleep. Where are they? Nari's face became sad again. The sleep pods failed after 212 years. There was not enough power to maintain them. I tried to save them. I transferred all remaining power to the pods, but it was not enough. They died in their sleep. All 1,437 of them, including Captain Park. Silence filled the bridge. Tiho thought about the people who had died on the ship. They had survived an attack. They had hidden for centuries, and in the end they had died alone in the dark, never knowing if humanity would find them. I am sorry, Nari said. I failed them. No, Tiho said. His voice was firm. You did not fail. You kept the ship safe. You kept the archive safe, and now we have found you. He looked at Sora. She nodded. Tell us everything, Tiho said to Nari. Everything the hegemony does not want us to know. It is time for humanity to remember. Nari smiled. For the first time in 400 years, she had hope. Where would you like me to begin? The recordings began to play. Tiho and Sora sat in the bridge of the Terra Resolve and watched history unfold before their eyes. Real history, not the lies they had been taught in school. Nari showed them everything, 400 years of hidden truth. The first recording was from the year 2089. It showed humanity's first contact with alien life. A hegemony scout ship had found a human mining station in the outer reaches of the solar system. The aliens were tall and thin, with gray skin and large dark eyes. They called themselves the Vorath, and they were one of the 12 elder species of the hegemony. At first, they seemed friendly. They welcomed humanity into the galactic community. They shared basic technology. They taught humans about the other species in the galaxy. The history books called this the Golden Age of First Contact. But Nari showed Tiho and Sora what the history books did not mention. "Watch carefully," Nari said. "This is a recording from a Hegemony Council meeting. One of our intelligence officers managed to hide a listening device in their chamber. This recording was made 50 years after first contact." The display showed a large circular room. 12 figures sat around a curved table. They were all different species. Some looked almost human. Others were so strange that Tiho could not tell where their bodies began and ended. These were the leaders of the hegemony, the rulers of 1,000 worlds. A Vorath was speaking. His voice was translated by Nari into human language. "The humans are becoming a problem. When we first found them, they were using primitive chemical rockets, basic nuclear power, simple computers. We gave them the standard welcome package, basic star maps, entry-level energy technology, standard things that we give all new species." Another alien spoke. This one was shorter with rough blue skin and 4 arms. And what happened? "They improved it, all of it. Within 20 years, they had taken our basic energy cells and made them 3 times more efficient. They redesigned our star maps and found shortcuts we had missed. They took our simple computers and created something they call artificial intelligence. It learns, it grows, it improves itself." The room became quiet. Tiho could feel the tension even through the recording. "How long did it take us to develop artificial intelligence?" one of the aliens asked. 80,000 years, the Vorath answered. "The humans did it in 50. Another alien, this one covered in bright feathers, leaned forward. "What is their population growth rate?" "They double their numbers every 60 years. At current rates, they will outnumber the Vorath within 2 centuries. They will outnumber all hegemony species combined within 5. And their military. They have no unified military yet, but they are building, they are always building. Every human colony has its own defense force. They are creating weapons based on our technology but better, faster, more powerful." The room was silent for a long moment. Then the oldest alien spoke. He was massive, like a mountain of flesh, with eyes that glowed faintly in the dark. "I have seen this before," he said. His voice was deep and slow. "Long ago, before any of you were born, there was another species like the humans. They learned fast, they grew fast, they built fast. We tried to work with them, we tried to guide them." "What happened?" someone asked. "They surpassed us. Within 1,000 years, they became more powerful than all the hegemony combined. And then they left. They simply left. They said we were too slow for them, too boring. They flew into the void between galaxies and never came back." "Is that so bad? If the humans leave, our problem is solved." The old alien shook his massive head. "You do not understand. Before they left, they spent 100 years as the dominant power in the galaxy. And in that time, they changed everything. They uplifted primitive species to intelligence. They moved stars. They built structures larger than planets. They played with the galaxy like children play with toys. And when they were done playing, they left us to clean up their mess. It took us 1,000,000 years to restore order." He paused and looked around the room. "We cannot allow that to happen again. The humans must be stopped. Now, before they become too strong to stop." The recording ended. Tiho sat in silence. His hands were shaking. He had just watched the leaders of the galaxy decide to murder his ancestors, not because they had done anything wrong, but because they might, someday, become too powerful. "There is more," Nari said. The next recording showed the hegemony's plan. They called it Operation Gentle Night. The name made Tiho want to scream. The plan was simple and horrible. They would wait until the first fleet left Earth. 7 ships carrying 50,000 humans to a new colony world, the best and brightest of humanity. Scientists, engineers, doctors, teachers, the future of the human race. The hegemony would destroy them all. Then they would send help to the remaining humans. They would offer sympathy and support. And while the humans grieved, the hegemony would quietly take control of their education, their technology, their growth. "We will become their guardians," the Vorath said in the recording. "We will help them, protect them, and we will make sure they never again develop too quickly. We will keep them safe, safe and small and manageable." The other aliens agreed. The vote was unanimous. "They planned everything," Sora said. Her voice was barely a whisper. "The attack, the fake storm, the help they gave afterward, all of it was planned." "Yes," Nari said, "and it worked. For 400 years the hegemony has controlled human development. They approve what technology you can use. They decide where you can colonize. They limit how fast you can grow. They tell you it is for your own protection, but it is not. It is for theirs." Tiho stood up. He walked to the window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there the hegemony was watching, waiting, making sure humanity never became a threat. "What about now?" he asked. "Are we still controlled?" "Very much so," Nari said. "The hegemony uses many methods. They control the education system. They teach humans that their ancestors were primitive and foolish. They teach that the hegemony saved humanity from itself. They make humans feel grateful for their chains. And technology. All advanced technology must be approved by hegemony inspectors. Anything that is too powerful, too efficient, or too new is banned. They say it is for safety, but the real reason is fear. They are still afraid of what humans might create." Tiho thought about his own life, his workshop, his tools. He had always wondered why some technologies were forbidden, why certain blueprints could not be shared, why inspectors came every year to check his equipment. Now he understood. It was not about safety, it was about control. "The files in your archive," Sora said. "The old Earth technology. Does the hegemony know about it?" "They believe it was all destroyed with the First Fleet. That was the point of the attack, to destroy not just the ships, but the knowledge they carried. The hegemony has spent 4 centuries making sure humans forgot what they used to know." "But you have it all," Tiho said. "Yes, everything. The complete scientific and technological history of Earth from its beginning until the day the First Fleet launched. Engines that are still more advanced than anything the hegemony uses. Medical technology that could extend human life by centuries. Energy systems that could end poverty on 100 worlds." Tiho turned back to face Nari's holographic image. His fear was gone now. In its place was something else. Something hot and bright that burned in his chest. Anger. Not wild, out-of-control anger, but a cold, steady fire that would not be extinguished. "They killed 50,000 people," he said. "They stole 400 years from us. They turned us into pets." "Yes," Nari said. "And they think they won." "Yes." Tiho smiled. It was not a kind smile. "They were wrong." He looked at Sora. She nodded slowly. She felt it too, the same anger, the same determination. "We cannot do this alone," she said. "We need help, people we can trust." "I know some people," Tiho said. "My brother, my old mentor, a hacker who owes me a favor. They will not believe it at first, but I will make them understand." "And then what?" Sora asked. Tiho looked at the files floating in the display. Millions of blueprints, centuries of stolen knowledge, the heritage of the human race. "And then we give it back," he said. "All of it, every blueprint, every design, every piece of technology the hegemony tried to bury, we give it to everyone." Nari's holographic face showed something that looked like hope. That would change everything. "That is the point," Tiho said. "The hegemony wanted to keep us small. They wanted us to be grateful little pets who never caused trouble. but they forgot something important about humans. What is that? Tiho's smile grew wider, fiercer. We do not stay down. No matter how many times you knock us down, we always get back up, and we always remember who hit us. He turned toward the door. Come on, Sarah, we have work to do. Behind them, Nari watched them go. For the first time in 400 years, she did not feel alone. The awakening had begun. Tiho's brother arrived first. His name was Junho, and he worked as a cargo pilot. He flew small ships between colonies, carrying goods and sometimes people who did not want to travel on official transport. He was tall and strong, with a quick smile and an even quicker temper. When Tiho showed him the Terra resolve, Junho did not smile. He walked through the ship in silence, touching the walls, looking at the equipment, reading the registry code on the display. Then he sat down heavily in one of the bridge chairs and put his head in his hands. This is real, he said. It was not a question. Yes, Tiho said. Our great-great-great-grandmother was on one of those ships. Mother always said she died a hero in the void storm. She did not die in any storm. She was murdered by the hegemony. Junho lifted his head. His eyes were wet, but his jaw was tight with anger. Show me everything. Nari played the recordings again. Junho watched without speaking. When they were finished, he stood up and walked to the window. He stayed there for a long time, staring at the stars. What do you need? He finally asked. Your ship, your contacts, your help spreading the word. Junho nodded slowly. You have it, all of it. The next to arrive was Dongwu. He was an old man now, retired from a long career as a ship captain. He had taught Tiho everything about engines and repair. He had also taught him about honor and duty and what it meant to be human. Dongwu did not speak while he watched the recordings. His face was like stone, but his hands shook, and Tiho could see a tear running down his weathered cheek. When the recordings ended, Dongwu closed his eyes. I always knew something was wrong, he said quietly. When I was a young captain, I found an old book in a market. It talked about technologies that no longer existed. I asked about them, and the hegemony inspectors came to my ship. They took the book. They asked many questions. They warned me to forget what I had read. He opened his eyes. I did not forget. I just learned to stay quiet. You do not have to stay quiet anymore, Tiho said. Dongwu smiled. It was a sad smile, but there was steel in it. No, I do not. The last to arrive was Yuna. She was a hacker who lived off the official grid. The hegemony did not know she existed. That was how she liked it. She was young, barely older than Tiho, with sharp eyes and quick hands that could make computers do anything she wanted. Yuna did not cry when she watched the recordings. She did not get angry. She just nodded slowly, as if something she had always suspected had finally been confirmed. I have been watching hegemony data networks for years, she said. There were always gaps, pieces that did not fit, files that were deleted but left traces. I could never prove anything, but I knew something was being hidden. She turned to look at the archive files floating in the display. Her eyes grew wide. This is everything, every piece of forbidden technology, every banned blueprint. This could change the galaxy. That is the plan, Tiho said. Yuna grinned. It was the grin of someone who had just been given the best gift of her life. Tell me what you need. They worked for 3 weeks. Nari helped them organize the archive into packages that could be easily shared. They started with simple things: better water purifiers, more efficient solar collectors, improved crop seeds that did not need hegemony-approved fertilizers. Yuna created hidden channels on the data networks. She found communities of humans who already did not trust the hegemony, scientists who had been punished for asking too many questions, engineers who had been banned for creating things that were too good, farmers who were tired of depending on hegemony supplies. She began to send the files. At first, nothing seemed to happen, But then reports started coming in from distant colonies. A farming community on a moon called Hassel had received the improved crop blueprints. Within weeks, they were growing food 3 times faster than before. They no longer needed to buy hegemony seeds. A group of miners on an asteroid belt had received engine upgrade plans. Their ships could now carry twice as much ore using half the fuel. The hegemony inspectors could not understand how they had done it. A medical clinic on a poor colony had received old Earth healing technology. Diseases that had been incurable were suddenly being treated. People who should have died were living. The news spread quietly, human to human, whispers in the dark, secret messages on hidden networks. Something was changing, something was waking up. But the hegemony was not blind. 4 weeks after the first files were shared, a diplomatic ship arrived at Sector 7 Gamma. It was a large vessel, white and gold, with the symbol of the hegemony painted on its hull. Behind it came 3 warships. They did not have the diplomatic colors. The Voreth diplomat came down to the surface alone. His name was Ambassador Keth, and he was tall and thin and very old. His gray skin was covered in lines, and his dark eyes showed no emotion. He met with the colony governor first, then he asked to speak with Tiho. Tiho met him in his workshop. The Terra Resolve was hidden nearby, but the ambassador did not seem to know about it. At least, not yet. "You are a mechanic," Ambassador Keth said. His voice was flat and cold. "Yes. A good one, I am told. You fix things that others cannot." Tiho said nothing. "Recently, there have been reports of unauthorized technology appearing on human colonies. Better engines, better medicine, better tools. The hegemony is concerned. We only want to protect humanity from dangerous inventions." "Dangerous how?" Tiho asked. "Untested, unregulated, who knows what harm they could cause." Tiho thought about the families who could now feed their children, the sick who could now be healed, the poor who could now compete. He thought about how much harm the hegemony's control had caused for 400 years. "I would not know anything about that," he said. The ambassador's eyes narrowed. "We have traced some of the data transmissions. They originated from this sector, from somewhere very close to where we stand now." "That is interesting, but I am just a mechanic. I fix old machines. I do not know anything about data transmissions." Ambassador Keth leaned forward. His gray face was very close to Tiho's now. "Let me be clear," he said. "The hegemony has protected humanity for 400 years. We have guided you, nurtured you, kept you safe from your own dangerous impulses. If someone is sharing forbidden technology, they are putting all of humanity at risk. The consequences would be severe." "Consequences?" "The hegemony would have no choice but to intervene, for humanity's own good." Tiho met the ambassador's eyes. He thought about the recordings Nari had shown him. The council meeting where the hegemony had voted to murder 50,000 innocent people. The plan they called Gentle Night. The centuries of lies and control. He thought about his ancestors, about Captain Park, who had died alone in the dark, waiting for humanity to find her ship, about the 50,000 people who had been killed just because they might someday become too smart. And he smiled. "Ambassador," Tiho said, "you should have made sure we were actually dead." The ambassador's eyes went wide. For just a moment, Tiho saw something in them that looked like fear. "What did you say?" "I think you heard me." Ambassador Keth stepped back. His composure was cracking. "You know nothing. You are a simple mechanic on a forgotten colony. You cannot possibly." "I found one of your mistakes," Tiho said. "The Terra Resolve, Colony Ship 7 of the First Fleet. You thought you destroyed it 400 years ago, but you did not. And now I know everything. We all do." The ambassador's face went very still. "That ship was destroyed in the Void Storm." "There was no storm, you know it, I know it. and soon every human in the galaxy will know it too. Ambassador Keth stared at him for a long moment. Then he turned and walked toward the door. "This is treason," he said without looking back. "The hegemony will not allow this to stand. You have no idea what you have started." "Yes, I do," Tiho called after him. "I have started a war, but it is not a new war. It is a very old one that you started 400 years ago when you murdered our people and stole our future." The ambassador stopped at the door. "You cannot fight the hegemony," he said. "You do not have the ships, the weapons, the technology." Tiho's smile grew wider. "Actually, we do. We have all of it, and we are sharing it with everyone." The ambassador left without another word. His warships remained in orbit, watching. But Tiho was not afraid. He returned to the Terra Resolve, where Sara, Junho, Dongwu, and Yuna waited for him. "They know," Junho said. "Yes. What do we do now?" Tiho looked at his friends, his family, the people who had chosen to stand with him. "Now we finish what we started. We send everything, every file, every blueprint, every piece of technology. We flood the networks. We give it all to every human colony in the galaxy." Yuna's fingers were already moving over her computer. "It will take a few hours, maybe a day." "Do it." Dongwu placed his hand on Tiho's shoulder. "The hegemony will strike back. They will try to stop us." "Let them try," Tiho said. "They spent 400 years teaching us to be weak. They forgot that weakness is not our natural state. When humans are pushed, we push back. When we are knocked down, we get up. And when we are attacked, we fight." He looked out the window at the warships in the sky. "They wanted to keep us as pets, but we are not pets. We are humans, and it is time we remembered what that means." The upload began. Across the galaxy, humans started receiving files, blueprints, designs, knowledge that had been stolen from them 4 centuries ago. And something began to change. Something began to wake up. The hegemony fleet arrived 3 days later. 20 warships jumped into the space above Sector 7 Gamma. They were massive vessels, each one larger than the entire colony. Their weapons powered up, filling the sky with a terrible glow. Ambassador Keth sent a message to the planet below. His voice was no longer calm. It was tight with anger and something else: fear. "Attention, humans of Sector 7 Gamma. You have been found guilty of spreading forbidden technology. You have 30 minutes to surrender the source of these transmissions. If you do not comply, we will be forced to take action." Tiho stood in the bridge of the Terra Resolve. Sara, Junho, Dongwu, and Yuna stood beside him. Nari's holographic face glowed softly in the air. "They are serious," Nari said. "Their weapons are fully charged. They have enough firepower to destroy the entire colony." "How long until the upload is complete?" Tiho asked. 94% complete. Another 2 hours. "We need to buy time." Junho walked to the communication panel. "Let me talk to them. I can pretend to negotiate. Make them think we are considering surrender." "That might work for a few minutes," Dongwu said. "But they will not wait long. The hegemony is not known for patience when they feel threatened." Tiho looked out the window at the warships in the sky. 20 ships, thousands of weapons, the full might of a civilization that had ruled the galaxy for millions of years. He thought about his ancestors, the 50,000 people who had died 400 years ago. They had faced the same enemy, the same ships, the same weapons. Most of them had not survived. But one ship had. "Nari," Tiho said slowly. "You said the Terra Resolve was designed to be a colony ship, but you also said it survived the attack when the other ships did not. How?" Captain Park was a former military commander. She insisted that the Terra Resolve be built with military-grade shielding and stealth technology. It was supposed to be a secret. The other captains did not know, but it saved us. "Is that technology still functional?" Nari paused. Yes, the stealth systems are fully operational. The shields are at 70%, which is still stronger than most military vessels. And weapons. The Terra Resolve has no offensive weapons. It was built to hide and run, not to fight. Tiho nodded. That was what he expected, but it gave him an idea. We do not need to fight them, he said. We just need to survive long enough for the upload to finish. After that, it does not matter what happens to us. The knowledge will be free. It will spread to every human colony. The hegemony cannot destroy it all. What are you suggesting? Sora asked. We take the Terra Resolve into space. We draw the hegemony fleet away from the colony. We run, hide, and keep them chasing us until the upload is complete. That is suicide, Dongwu said quietly. Even with stealth technology, they will eventually find us. And when they do, we will have won. The knowledge will be free. That is what matters. Sora shook her head. I did not come this far to die running. There has to be another way. But before anyone could answer, Nari spoke again. Her voice was strange, surprised. I am receiving transmissions, many transmissions, from all across the sector. What kind of transmissions? Ship signals, human ship signals. They are responding to a broadcast I did not send. The main display changed. It showed the space around Sector 7 Gamma. The 20 hegemony warships were still there, still pointing their weapons at the planet. But now there was something else. Ships, hundreds of ships. They were jumping into the system from every direction. Cargo haulers, mining vessels, passenger liners, transport ships, fishing boats, construction barges, every kind of civilian ship imaginable. They were not military vessels. They had no weapons that should have been dangerous to hegemony warships. But as they arrived, the display began to show energy signatures that did not match their classifications. They have modified their ships, Nari said. Her voice was filled with wonder. They are using the archive data, engine upgrades, shield boosters, and weapons. They built weapons from the old Earth blueprints. Tiho watched as more and more ships arrived. They came from nearby colonies. They came from distant stations. They came from everywhere, and they were all flying toward the hegemony fleet. A voice crackled over the communication channel. It was rough and angry. This is Captain Min Sung of the cargo hauler Silver Wind. We received your files. We know what the hegemony did. We are here to make sure they do not do it again. Another voice joined in. This is the mining consortium of the Belt of Kion, 15 ships ready to fight. And another, medical transport Bright Hope standing by. Our shields are at 200% of normal capacity. Thank you for the blueprints. And another, and another, and another. Dozens of voices, then hundreds, ships from every human colony in the region all speaking at once, all saying the same thing. We remember, we know the truth, and we are here. Ambassador Keth's voice came over the channel again. He was not angry anymore. He was afraid. This is an illegal gathering. All human ships must disperse immediately. The hegemony does not want to harm innocent people, but we will defend ourselves if necessary. A new voice answered. It was calm and steady. Tiho recognized it immediately. This is Tiho of Sector 7 Gamma. I am aboard the Terra Resolve, Colony Ship 7 of the Earth Expeditionary Fleet, the ship you tried to destroy 400 years ago. Silence on the channel. 400 years ago, you attacked our ancestors. You killed 50,000 innocent people. You did it because you were afraid of what we might become. And then you spent 4 centuries teaching us to be small and weak and grateful for our chains. More ships were arriving. The display showed over 300 human vessels now. The hegemony fleet was surrounded. But we are done being small. We are done being weak. And we are done being grateful to the people who murdered our families and stole our future. Tiho looked at the people standing with him. Sora, who had risked everything to help him. Junho, his brother who had never hesitated to fight for family. Dongwu, his mentor who had waited his whole life for this moment. Yuna, who had given humanity its knowledge back. He looked at Nari, who had waited alone in the dark for 400 years. And he looked at the hundreds of ships outside. Cargo haulers and mining boats and passenger liners, all crewed by ordinary people who had decided that today was the day they stopped being afraid. "You wanted to keep us as pets," Tiho said, "but here is what you forgot about humans. We do not forget, we do not forgive, and we do not stop." The hegemony fleet began to move, but they were not attacking, they were retreating. 20 warships, the pride of a million-year-old civilization, backing away from cargo haulers and fishing boats. Because the hegemony finally understood what they were facing. Not just a few ships, not just a few rebels, but humanity itself, awake and angry and remembering who they used to be. The warships jumped away. One by one, they vanished into the darkness of space, until only Ambassador Keth's diplomatic vessel remained. His voice came over the channel one last time. "This is not over. The hegemony will not accept this. There will be consequences." Tiho smiled. "I am counting on it." The diplomatic vessel jumped away. The sky was empty except for human ships. The battle was over without a shot being fired. But Tiho knew the ambassador was right. This was not over. It was just beginning. The hegemony would come back. They would bring more ships, more weapons, more force. The war that had started 400 years ago was finally out in the open. But for the first time, humanity was ready to fight. In the days that followed, the upload completed. Every human colony in the galaxy received the archive data. Scientists began studying blueprints that had been hidden for centuries. Engineers began building technology that had been forbidden. Doctors began healing diseases that had been untreatable. And people began to remember. They remembered the First Fleet. They remembered the 50,000 who had died. They remembered the truth that had been stolen from them. Ships from across the galaxy sent messages to the Terra Resolve. Messages of thanks, messages of anger, messages of hope. Humans everywhere were waking up. Tiho stood in the restored bridge of the ancient ship. It looked different now, cleaner, brighter. Nari had brought all systems back to full power. The Terra Resolve was no longer a ghost hiding in a junkyard. It was a symbol, a reminder of what humanity had been and what it could become again. Sara, Junho, Dongwu, and Yuna stood with him. They had become something more than friends now. They were the first crew of the reborn Terra Resolve. "What happens now?" Junho asked. Tiho looked at the star map on the display. Somewhere out there were 6 more ships, 6 more pieces of humanity's lost history, the other colony ships of the First Fleet. "Nari," he said, "do you know where the other ships might be?" "I have some data. The Terra Resolve sensors tracked the other vessels during the attack. Some were destroyed, some were captured, but at least 2 others managed to escape. I do not know where they are now, but I know where they were headed." The star map changed. 2 points of light glowed in the darkness of space. 2 possibilities, 2 hopes. Dongwu smiled. "We are going to find them." "Yes," Tiho said. "We are going to find all of them. We are going to bring them home. And then we are going to remind the galaxy what happens when you make an enemy of humanity." Nari's voice filled the bridge. It was warm now, happy, hopeful. "What are your orders, Captain?" Tiho looked at his crew, his family, the first new crew of the Terra Resolve in 400 years. "Set a course for the first location, maximum speed." "Yes, Captain." The engines hummed to life. The old ship that had hidden for 4 centuries began to move. It rose above Sector 7 Gamma, passing through the fleet of cargo haulers and mining boats that had come to defend it. The crews of those ships watched as it passed, and they cheered. The Terra Resolve jumped into faster-than-light travel. The stars became streaks of light. and then they were gone. Behind them, the galaxy was changing. Humanity was changing. 4 centuries of sleep were ending. And ahead of them, somewhere in the vastness of space, 6 more ships were waiting to be found. The first chapter of humanity's new story had ended. But the next chapter was just beginning.